Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. EQOA Nostalgia here. Please excuse the annoying buzzing sound in the background. It's that time of year where, the AC is kicking on. It's hot outside, man. And I haven't talked about EQOA for a while. And truth be told, I haven't played EQOA since about wintertime. The videos you guys have been watching, I recorded those months ago. So the missus and I kind of tapped out for a little while. And, there's different reasons for that. I don't like to throw shade at anybody or anything, but they're doing things on the server that I don't really like that much, and I disagree with some of the direction that they've taken. And that's not that I don't respect what they're doing. I do, but at the same time, I've said this before. I'm a purist. I'm one of those people who, if you want to have a side server or something where you're doing your own thing, that's cool. But I want the original to be there first. Right? Like when I played the remake to Final Fantasy VII, I can enjoy aspects of it. I just played it not that long ago. I hated it the first time I played it 4 years ago, and I drug myself back to it and completed it. I can kind of see what they're doing, right? And this does relate to EQOA, so bear with me. I can kind of see what they were doing with that remake. But at the same time, when I read things from Nomura, who talks about how they were going to do things better and this and that, it just irritates me. Because if you hold something dear, like I do with EQOA and Final Fantasy VII, this is one of my favorite games of all time, and somebody goes in and has the idea that, well, I'm going to change things and make it better, me being a purist, I tend to get a little pissed off by that, It's one of the things that just irritates me. I find myself constantly irritated with these remakes, and it's so funny how that has to do with EQOA today. All these remakes coming out, which I would refer to as demakes, they remove things, they change things, they censor things, they add different things in, and I'm not saying that's what they're doing with Sandstorm, but they are definitely changing things and doing things their own way. Like I said, if there was another server that was pure vanilla available, and then somebody said, hey, we're going to do things over here differently, that's cool. I think I'd be on board with that. And I've petitioned in the past to actually change things. Well, not change them, but add things to the game over time, because there's only so much here. We only got one expansion, so it can get kind of boring. But when I see Sandstorm adding things like holiday events and all this other stuff, and then they came out with the holiday quests, and that gear was so OP, everybody was wearing it, everybody looked the same, and then they had to nerf it, and it's just, they're doing things over there that doesn't make sense to me, right? I'd rather see the original vision of the game and the gear kept the same way it was. I don't want to see new gear come in, and then all of a sudden everybody's wearing the same crap. I know it kind of got that way at the end anyways, let's be honest. And that's why I'm excited about EQOAemu dropping a new update, because it's been a year. And I'm going to attempt to read this, bearing in mind that I'm dealing with an injury right now. That makes it a little hard to breathe, so I'm like sipping on air if I breathe in too deep. It hurts really bad. So, yeah, I kind of set myself up to fail here by reading something this long. But nevertheless, here we go. Hey, all, and welcome to the June 2025 EQOAemu update. It's been a long year with a lot happening, and though we've been quiet, we've still been hard at work in one way or another. Many of us have been tied up with real-life things from time to time, but we're still pushing forward and seeing good progress. Just as a reminder, if you missed last year's update, you can find it here. This year has mostly been about refinements to existing systems, rewrites for stability, and getting things right. We're trying to focus on those last little things that really make the game shine, and honestly, we're getting there. That's good news, because I'm really hoping, like by the fourth quarter of this year, we can get something where maybe we can just run around to level 20 and going through Kino's story or Surefall, that kind of thing. I'm away on vacation right now, so I can't easily get any in-game pictures or video. I'm not sure who's doing this. By the way, I should mention it just says EQOAadmin. I don't know if it's Jeremiah or if it's like Target acquired or somebody like that. But I will do my best to capture some when I get back. In the meantime, I'll include a few various recent pictures and videos where I'm able. Quests, dialogue, and NPC interactions, oh my. I got a cat flipping out in here because there's like a moth or something. What are you doing? Go away. Things have been a little quieter lately on new quests, But a lot of refinements have been made, and we've started expanding some quests to other cities. Just last week, I was testing quests in Moradham and Click Annan. All the mechanisms are built out for the most part to support all the quests now, and it's mostly just a matter of finding the time and resources to get them all implemented across Denaria. Our focus is still on class-specific quests first, but soon we should be rolling out things like 17s, 23s, etc. as well. Wolf, vampire quests are still a ways off, most likely, but all the mechanisms are there to move forward on those. So that's good. They've got everything they need to get them working. They just have to get, just got to do it. So they've got the tools and everything they need. Merchant inventories. This is still far from perfect, but it's getting much better. I recently took data from the Prima guide as far as what NPCs in each starting zone should have specific class spells, then wrote an SQL query to find the spell scrolls in the item tables matching the levels and class requirements of those NPCs and match them so they'd go in the correct inventories. We still have a lot to do adding items to various NPC inventories around Denaria, but the new tool we'll talk about a little further down is making that easier than ever. So yeah, you can see that they've got everything built that they need to really start fleshing things out. Massive NPC player stat rework. This was a large quantity of work when we realized last year during combat mechanics that it seemed very one-sided. Apparently, that was because we had never actually given our NPCs stats. So yeah, that's going to make a big difference. So Bwiz undertook a significant journey into reworking all the stats for players and NPCs to not only be more streamlined, but also just creating programmatic ways to give NPCs stats to begin with, and we've gotten some mechanisms in place to dynamically generate those values, both based on level, potential one-off modifiers, and then of course mob classes, which exists. But we haven't gone through NPCs with a fine-tooth comb, assigning specific classes to each one. This is one of the things that Sandstorm struggled with for a while. Like I said, I haven't played in a couple of months, but that's hard to nail down. What's going to crit and what's going to use what spell, and is it going to spawn back as a caster every now and then? Because that did happen. I remember the missus and I killed a bear. I've told this story before, and then all of a sudden it came back as a caster and killed us, and I actually opened up a ticket to try to get our debt removed. And I was like, this is BS, man. That thing wasn't a caster. And then it spawned back as a caster, like, it's the way she goes. Anyway, NPC behavior. This is kind of a multi-pronged piece here, as a lot goes into it. NPCs can cast spells, but the behavior trees aren't quite there yet. This will be something I'm turning my attention to soon, as it's important for combat, and I've been heavily focusing on combat math tuning. Due to a large amount of William's work, NPC behavior in most other aspects is very solid. Now, I'm not up to date with who's working on what ever since my exodus from the Discord years ago, so I'm not entirely certain who's who, which that kind of sucks. But yeah, it's good to see they're doing all this. Stuff is complicated, man, and you got to give credit to the Sandstorm devs for it as well. It's not easy getting this stuff to work. MMORPGs are very difficult to program. There's a lot of different variables and a lot of stuff that goes on with numbers behind the scenes and stuff like that. NPCs roam correctly on spawning now, following somewhat randomized pathing as well as randomized spawning around their spawn point now, instead of spawning in static spots in the wild. This is allowing us to create many fewer spawn points for roaming wildlife, creating a density parameter you'll see later in the admin tool, and spawn a lot of mobs in various positions tied to a single point. This cuts down on resources used for spawning and is a bit easier to manage while still really filling up these empty spaces. This is one of the things on Sandstorm. You'll notice that mobs they're not always there. They spawn in when you go there, when you go to that area. At least that's how it was a few months ago. And I think they were doing that to save on memory, because that stuff's, it's pretty memory intense. So you can see that they've condensed it down to a single point instead of having them spawn all over the place. And then they can just disperse from there, which is going to save on memory. I think that's what he's saying here. And there's some videos to accompany all this stuff. You guys should check them out. NPCs also have the ability to patrol that can be seen with a handful of the guards we've got positioned around starting cities as they patrol the halls of places like Kinos. This will soon be expanded to other cities as the mechanisms are there and honestly pretty easy to add the paths for NPCs. Again, just a matter of finding time from the content team to get it added for various patrollers. Let's see here. In both cases, and many others, NPCs have appropriate behavior trees, then handle chasing, roaming, leashing, attacking, backing off. Yeah, even just the act of them chasing you and everything. There's all these different things that go into it. When do they leash? When do they break off and go away? Like, all that has to be programmed in, and just about everything else that goes along with mob behaviors. This is complex stuff. This is why it takes so long, man. I keep saying that because I know there's people that are pissed it's taking forever, and I've been there. Trust me. I think I complain about this like once a month with the missus. When's the EMU coming out? What the? There may be some corner cases, but even in the event that a player is aggroed while they have a pet, the pet NPC will appropriately perform the correct behavior based on stance. This should also be reflected for NPCs that have pets when you engage that NPC, but there aren't many instances of that engaged yet in EQOAemu. Some goofiness remains that I'm ironing out with aggro, but this is mostly correct. Which leads into another big piece that was worked on heavily lately. Mobs also leash correctly based on water volumes. This means mobs will not chase you outside of water volumes. I've had that happen a few times in the sandstorm. I've actually gone through like the ground and stuff. I'm sure they sorted that out. I think they sorted out when I was still playing, actually. But for fairness, you also can't attack water-only mobs without being in the water with them to be attacked. Yeah, that's how it was back in the day. Additionally, land mobs will chase you into the water as well as swim to get you. I remember a rumor that ghosts couldn't cross the water. And, I might have helped to perpetuate that rumor because there was a ghost that chased me. And when he got to the river, he was like, nah, he went the other way. That's an old folklore thing if you don't know. Ghosts can't pass running water. Yeah, it's BS. They could absolutely do that. He just happened to leash in the right spot. I've begun adding some intelligence to various systems of the game that existed in live, where in instances like a mob leashing back to its aggroed point, the mob also full heals to prevent players from trying to leash kite over a greater distance than you would have been able to in live. Yeah, people like to get cheeky and test those systems to exploit. Player state update. Another big component of Williams' work recently has been player state in volumes of water, breath, lava damage, and mud movement speed. We added some spell animations to signify damage for now, depending on type of damage, whether it's lava or breathing. Might not be quite right, but it's an okay placeholder as we figure that out. Players now have an active breath meter while underwater and will take damage appropriately to live once you're out of breath. Your breath, as expected, will refill once you're no longer fully submerged in the water. We had spells for water breathing, right? I think so. Lava-based zones will now have a fire damage tick on you as you wade through the lava as expected. So the days of swimming through the lava and making videos, just clowning around, that's over. That's over. Mud/sludge-based areas will now appropriately slow movement when moving through those types of terrains as well. Hot pot fully functioning as expected. There have been bugs around this in the past, and I'm pretty sure we finally squashed. All right. Spell casting refinements. I recently did a massive rework of our Lua framework as I identified a huge bug with the help of random when it comes to our Lua implementation. Without getting into the technical nuts and bolts too much, Lua stores everything in a global table if not declared as a local variable. The way Lua works with the hooks, if you hook an object, is it enters it into the global table. It took a very large rework to move to parameterized Lua functions different than how I had originally written. This is all Greek to me. I don't know about you guys. That's on me as a misunderstanding of how the language worked when I implemented it probably 3 years ago now. The good news is that this is fixed and led to a renaissance of getting new spells and abilities wired up in game. Lyuko, am I saying that right? Lyuko has been super hard at work fleshing out a ton of spells, so now most spells work in some capacity and the other ones that don't are just a matter of implementing the files using templates of sorts for similar types. The one thing that I can think of we still need to tackle is charm pets, but that will be coming soon, I believe. Something that when I left Sandstorm was still being worked on. Well, when I last played Sandstorm, I shouldn't say left it. I still plan on logging in here and there. Other spell improvements were made as well. After looking at it, we had a system where spell name lookups would look up in a larger directory listing than they really needed to be. And so I whittled it down to search explicitly for the spell for that class, master class. This is a minor improvement, but will speed up Lua script lookups, so won't be noticed by the player, but will help with offloading resources from the back end. The other complicated piece is this that I've heavily cleaned up is better handling of the server honoring forcing target scope of spells. So previously there were a lot of instances where you could cast spells on targets you shouldn't be able to, as well as instances of being able to cast on targets you should be able to. Now this is all handled in the server code to forcing targeting behind the scenes. So for instance, if you're casting Return Home, but you're targeting Merchant Yulia, the server knows it's a self-only spell and forces self as the target. In other instances, if a spell is targeted based, it's target ally only. It prevents and auto-corrects the target if possible, or lets you know you currently have the incorrect target type in that chat box. So does this mean that you could force Return Home a merchant or something? You just cast it on the coachman and everybody's effed. Could you imagine? Poor man's Shard server. Shard server turned out to be a bit of a bigger bear than we're willing to tackle right now with the resources and timeline we're looking at. I'm not sure what this is. I imagine it was discussed in the Discord. That said, William and Bwiz in different pieces have fleshed out what we dubbed as Poor Man's Shard server, where effectively we diced up certain components of the game into their own structures so we're not constantly checking things that simply aren't doing anything. The most obvious place this occurs is that if a player is not in a zone currently or has not been in a zone for a short period of time, we stop processing behavior trees, respawns, etc. until a player enters the zone again. We don't have to worry about it right now, but we separate ways of processing things like random timer-based raid spawns and whatnot, and can tackle that a little later. Doing this heavily offloads the amount of resources needed to run the game, as there's a tremendous number of objects in the game as well as a number of zones, and the fact is the vast majority of the time we won't have players in every single zone. That's true. Factions have been refined a bit more, but still need a little bit of work. All the functionality is effectively there in the code, and really just last time and care needs to be put in to verify everything and wire it all up. Database side for various mob types. It wasn't a massive number of things that awarded functions as a percentage of the total mob type count, so this probably isn't that big a lift. We just need some team hours on it to get it knocked out and tested. The big piece to this that we added since the last update is the cares about faction piece that we call it internally. It's really just faction associations effectively. So we have more data to fill out, but the code and database schema is there now to support the ability for chained faction changes. So if you killed something like a Faithful of Mar, you'd lose faction with not only the Temple of Mar, but also potentially the citizens of Freeport. I totally made that connection up, but just as for example. I need to coordinate adding something in for the content team into the new web admin tool I made. It's on my to-do list, which feels miles long sometimes, but more about that tool in a bit. New web admin tool. Our old tooling was written with and React.js and was honestly kind of awful. I'm not a web developer though, so it was the best I could throw together at the time. I threw basically all of that in the trash. Revealing today the new and improved web admin tool. This is only accessible via OAuth to the EQOAemu team, including our content folks and devs. Map editor. This is by far the biggest new piece and one I'm most proud of. William threw together the nav meshes baked into this in an HTML document initially that rendered the entirety of Terraria, and I expanded on that by turning it into a full React JS front end with a Python Fast2P back end. Again, totally Greek to us normies in the room. I also trimmed it down to only render a single zone at a time because it took monster amounts of memory for a browser-based task and was very slow moving about in the entire rendered world. So here's the tool they got set up. Oh, that's cool. I want to click on it and take a look at it real quick. Nice. Man, I'd love to have something like this just to make content. Because you guys know how I like to sometimes like make wacky music videos and whatnot. And I got the UI in the way and everything. I'd love to be able to have where I could just roam around like this. Place NPCs wherever I want. Make all sorts of like machinima style stories for EQOA. I think that would be cool. Anyway. Item editor. Basically a place to add, edit, or in the future delete any items that just aren't correct. I have added item icon mapping and model image mapping to make it easier for content folks to update things without knowing any of the database stored values, as those aren't really human readable. NPC editor. With this new tool, it's a one-stop shop for the content team to be able to add any mobs they find missing or edit ones that are currently there that are not 100% correct. Not currently a feature, but I'll be adding a delete in the near future to a somehow we've inherited over time some mobs that just shouldn't exist or are there for joke reasons. Fear not, some of the contributor avatars will remain, like Vaccinate and maybe Wolfmoon. They did put Wolfmoon in, I think it was Plane of Sky. He's one of those marionette dudes. Thought I do intend to give him, I think that means to say though I do intend to give him his own quest line at some point as a thank you for the large contributions he'd made to the EQOA effort in its early days. That's cool. So Faxon's getting a quest around him. That's awesome, man. I like to hear that. NPC inventory editor. There's a bit of nuance here as loot tables and inventory work a little differently. This is for some technical reasons that like we don't want to store all loot tables for all mobs all the time before they're actually killed, as it just provides no benefit and adds additional overhead of managing those objects when we don't need to. This also is because there are instances like Freeport guards where you could kill them and loot their shield and sword, but also instances where merchants have inventory, but not loot tables because you can't kill them in most instances anyway. Loot table editor. Loot tables are important. Loot tables are also a pain to manage without a UI tool. Enter the loot table editor. Content team folks are now able to look up loot tables, options by the mob names, edit them, adjust the percentage time different items should drop within the loot table, and many other features. Spawn group editor. Man, see, this update's all about how they're getting tools into the game to streamline the process. That's pretty cool. This is how one of the things I'm really proud of for EQOAemu. This is one of the things I'm really proud of for EQOAemu and love. We all remember the spawn points in live didn't necessarily always spit out the exact same mob every time. Welcome to spawn groups. This feature adds the granularity to potentially have a single spawn node that can spit out any number of different mob types based on location. This tool now allows EQOAemu folks to assign spawn group mob type entries that then tie to spawn points to create some dynamism where it's needed. This could range from the percentage change to spawn a named mob, or just one of those spawn nodes that will spit out warrior, ranger, or the surprise caster mob. Yeah, there we go with that surprise caster mob. The bear that wrecked us. Depending on the respawn. Loot updates. The content team has spent a bunch of time correcting things they found wrong with items in the database. I also was able to write a converter to take some data given to me by T-Kane and Ranu. I believe that was them. And Ingest bulk fixes into our database for both spells and items. As part of this, they've also hard at work at perfecting loot tables, so badgers drop badger eyes and not snake scales and the like. It's all coming together. I need to work on some additional code refinement and testing to make sure we're getting the percentages right for drops, but it's a work in progress. Combat calculation adjustments. So this is a sticky wicket, as they say. It's a tongue twister, more like. So this is a sticky wicket. Say that 3 times or 10 times fast. I dare you. The good news is that similar to the other project out there, we were able to thankfully get the original live combat formulas, which were similar to some we already had, but gave a little bit more context than we previously had. The bad news is that there is still a little bit of ambiguity with some of the terms of the combat formula, so we're still doing some tinkering. We are taking AC into account currently and various stats as expected by the formula, but we haven't exactly hammered down absorb yet, which we're pretty sure is mostly related to resists as far as we can tell from the information we've been relayed from previous dev sources. There's still plenty more to tinker with in this area and get right, as I often say, but we're moving in the right direction. You know, there's just a lot of different things to account for with combat to get it, you know, as close as they can for live. Triggered events. Triggered events are fully in-game and working now, but still need to be implemented in more cases. The 3 big ones that are in the game but need a little bit of polishing are new player intro, combat tutorial, and spellcasting tutorial. These are all in-game, but things like the combat tutorial need triggering more consistently as players leave their starting town's exits. Aside from that, we can now trigger events like mob spawns, pop-up dialogue, quest progression, etc., based on player NPC location. You guys remember how important that is. There's lots of pop-ups and little flags that you would trigger throughout the game. Bug fixes. NPCs face the opposite direction of whatever the player is facing. So it was discovered that I accidentally didn't make NPCs face the player when they talked, but they actually faced the inverse of the player's direction, which pseudo made the expected behavior work most of the time, but our testers found if you faced away from the NPC and talked to them, the NPC would face back to back with you. Thanks to William for helping me with an algorithm that found the NPC's correct facing based on the player's position instead of the player's facing. Sending pets at targets shouldn't be able to. Originally, you were able to incorrectly send your pets to attack things like merchants. We've refined this so this behavior tree honors the no attack flag. Yeah, dead coaches. Anybody remember that? I'm not misremembering that, right? People were able to kill coaches for like the first couple of weeks of EQOA, right? I seem to remember that. Unable to memorize spells past the 5th slot. This was caused by an issue where I was saving players' state inconsistently, and it was leading to weird phantom assignments of spells to the hotbar and causing strange visual experiences in the UI. Fixed the saving state issue, and it cleared up both problems. Could you imagine you're adding stuff, or maybe you do something incorrectly, and it's like it creates this cascade failure of things that why is it doing that now? What? You would take a look at something acting completely out of line for some reason, and you'd have to trace it back to, oh, it was this stupid thing that I forgot to put in here. It's like a domino effect. I imagine it's fun trying to chase all that kind of shit down. Spells casting out of range, even if they fizzle, as addressed above. We cleaned up the spell casting logic immensely to honor all the various requirements of spells, such as range, target, spell requirements, etc. Can only cast pet-only spells if conning an NPC, as addressed above with the spell targeting fixes. Casting on dead mobs. Again, addressed above with the spell targeting fixes. It's funny, because even during a live, and now on Sandstorm, I'm pretty sure, you can still get that one cast off, and the mob will die, and it'll finish on the corpse. And you'll see this spell effect on the corpse. That's always been a thing. I know that's not what they're talking about, but it just reminded me of that. Various player class / race combos spawning in incorrect locations. Did some cleanup on this to correct things spawning where they should when you first enter the game. We still have a small laundry list of bugs, but these are getting knocked out as fast as we can while constantly adding more while we plumb in and refine more features. Wrap up. As we wrap up, just a few things to say. I'm sure there's stuff not in this document that I've left out. I'll try to retroactively add it if I come across it. Otherwise, it'll make it in the next update, which if all goes to plan won't be another year away this time. I gotta be honest, I kept checking back like every month for updates, and I'm like, what is going on? It's been a big year for EQOAemu, both in terms of development but also for our members in life. I'm still cancer free. As far as we know, which is better than where we were a year ago. I remember hearing about this. One of the devs was struggling with cancer. Like I said, I'm not on the Discord anymore. I think I want to say Target Acquired who dealt with that, but I thank God that that's gone, man. If you're watching this, we know what that's like in this house, trust me. So God bless, and I'm glad that's in remission. Hopefully it stays that way. Some of us have taken new jobs, promotions, etc., and just major life changes in general. As always, a massive thank you to the EQOAemu team members and contributors that make all this magic happen. Huge thank you to the community as well for believing in us and supporting us and having patience as we work on this massive undertaking. That's part of the reason why I read all this, even though I know a lot of people aren't going to really understand all the jargon, is because it's important that everybody understands how complex it is and how much goes into this stuff. It's not easy. It takes a long time. We're still hard at work. There's still more to do. We still plan on releasing all our code in the near future as open source, as we've always promised. This is one of the things that I prefer about the server over Sandstorm, and I'm not trying to dunk on Sandstorm. I appreciate the work they've done over there, but there are things that I just don't agree with what they're doing. There's you guys know, you've seen the videos from me before complaining about it. We don't have to go over it again. But yeah, as we've always promised, when we feel it's ready for prime time. If you or anyone you know is interested in contributing either to code or content development, please reach out over Discord, as we're always looking for more help, however we can get it. Thanks for a great year, EQA community. So, there you have it, guys. There's all of that stuff. And mostly, like I said, this is them setting up the tools to get things working. So they've got all these things that are going to make it easier for the developers to put stuff into the game, basically. And it's going to come a lot quicker. But yeah, I would encourage you guys to come over here, check this out, watch the videos and everything. I'm still waiting on a new LFG episode, Jeremiah. Hopefully you guys will get one soon. I saw something that Chris uploaded, actually, over on Twitch. But it was just him. I think it was him and somebody else. They were just reminiscing a little bit. But I'm looking forward to the next big LFG podcast. But yeah, hopefully you guys you got information from this. I hope you're hyped about this. I'm very much looking forward to EQOAemu. Everybody knows that. It's been a long haul for about 13 years now, I think. And yeah, it looks like things are finally starting to get over that hill. And hopefully we can have something playable by the end of the year. I don't know. Maybe Jeremiah can let me know in the comments if he sees this. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of it down in the comment section below. Upvote this video and, subscribe. Click the notification bell if you're new around here. God bless, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.
Nostalgia. It's delicate.